All right, welcome to the second talk on the second day of IROD's UGM. This is Claudio Cacciari from SURF. He's going to talk about archiving offline and beyond using the BagIt format and the bdbag library. Here you go, Claudio.
Yeah, hi. So yes, this will be my presentation for today. I will mention that at SURF, we are working with data flow that involves a tape library and archiving data on the tape library. This data flow has some constraint due to the nature of the tape library, and so we have, let's say, tested and thought of some approach to make the life easier for the user. That's the final goal. So yeah, most of you already know SURF as an ICT cooperative for educational research in Netherlands, which has also among the various services, data management services and high performance computing services. And among the services, we have a tape library, and users are using it in accessing it through both direct command line clients, but also through IRODs. We, let's say, configure the tape library as one of the resources in IRODs, and then the user access the tape library directly from IRODs. The problem or is the constraint that we have is that tape library is optimized for a large file, let's say of the order of magnitude of 1 GB or more, and that's the small file are not really good for the performance. They kill the performance of the library. So we have a policy to limit the size of the file, and the user must comply with that policy. So the natural first things, it's asking the user, please do not fill our tape library with small files. And some users are happy to comply, other are simply do not care too much, let's say. And so you later you need to chase them and ask them, please, can you remove your small file, and can you re-upload the package, bigger package with your small file. User can, of course, use IROSI command like IBAN or package with tar their file and upload them. But yeah, this approach is not so satisfying, let's say, for most of the user. And also, if you have a very big number of files, that does not scale well. Of course, in the past, we have also used the rules to automate the creation of tar and package within IRODs. That's of course works, but the more you refine your data flow, adding option like different kind of compressions or managing of archiving the checksum and the metadata and so on, the more the rule becomes complex and, let's say, hard to maintain. And then you want to use maybe some standard metadata, some standard package format, and again, it feels like re-implementing this kind of structure within our tool. It's a bit reinventing the wheel. So we have decided to split the logic in two parts. So partially outsourcing the task to an external library and keeping some rules within IRODs to prepare the data before being packaged and archived to the library. And we decided to use the BagIt format as a packaging format, and the bdbag library that supported that format. So for the people that are not familiar with this two tool, well, one bdbag, it's open source collection of utilities, software. There is the library, there is a command line that can really help you to manage this kind of packages. And BagIt is a format which is quite generic. It's a container, basically, a hierarchical file layout convention for storage and transfer or arbitrary digital content. So It's agnostic about the digital content, so it does not impose any specific schema or standard about the content, the payload. So it was quite convenient for us, because we have a very heterogeneous number of different users with different format and so on, and BagIt does not really impose anything. That's quite flexible. So going a bit more in details, there is this set of rules, as I said, that prepare the data, in the sense that the data potentially can be scattered in different resources. So in order to optimize the creation of the package, we move the data on a default resources that is defined as input to the process, to the system. Then once all the data are on the same resources, and we create the real BagIt package, and then we have some rules that perform this activity in background, let's say, as a batch job. Or another way to view the same set of rules is this set of steps that we implemented. Basically, we expect that a user tag the collection with some metadata, and then the background rule that scan periodically the metadata space of our IR system, check which collection are tagged with certain specific metadata, move this on the same resources, and then create the BagIt packages, as I said, and register the BagIt package, still within the same, let's say, resources, in this case, resource A. And then the final step is really moving the package to the tape library, in this case, called Surf Archive resources. And only when we have registered, and let's say we are sure that this final step is successful, we remove the original collection. So in case some intermediate step fails here, we can roll back to the original collection without losing anything. And the original collection is removed in the end if we decide to move completely to tape, but we support also the option to just copy the data. In this case, the original collection is kept. So as I said, let's say, assume that the user can tag the collection with certain metadata. Here is an example that you can see. So we use a keywords called surf BagIt in the A view of the collection, and then the destination resource, in this case is Surf Archive, and then the action that can be moved if we want to really move, or copy, just or copy. And of course, we have the keywords for the operation of moving and packaging to the data archive, and unbag it for the reverse operation. Let's say the benefit of not having the user directly invoking the rule, but just using metadata is to avoid potential overload of the system. In this way, that the user can select which collection, but then we control when we move the collection, and avoid that let's say there are potential denial of service, let's say, like many users at the same time moving massively collection to the data archive. And we also, in this way, are able to store together in the package also the metadata. So we have implemented a simple parser of the AVUs that export, let's say, the AVU as a JSON, and the JSON file is stored within the BagIt package. We support both the, let's say, plain AVUs with the normal standard format, but also we have tested with the, let's say, Maastricht script that uses the nested format of the AVU. So we can use both. And that's are the scope of the bdbag library. So what we delegate to the library is the real creation of the packets, the computation of the checksum, compression, and then the management of the metadata part, and back the materialization of the BagIt package. Of course, this is done on a file system. So this works fine with every resource which start with the file system. And also our tape library has a file system in front of it, so that works fine. That's of course works also in case of an object store, if we have a sort of staging resource in front of the object store where you can create the package before moving to the object store. The benefits, as I said, of this approach is that we really focus on IRODS on the managing the data and the resource without need to reinvent the wheel about the creation of the package and the management of the package itself. We rely on an open source library. And also this separation allow us to extend easily the concept, in the sense we could, in principle, add additional support for additional packages, not only BagIt. We could support, I don't know, frictionless data package presented yesterday or others. And then we can also support the import and export of AVU and also ACL. We also are able to add the option to export the whole ACL of the package if needed. We are still not sure that it makes sense to re-import the ACL, so we have not configured it to do it, because as you can imagine, if the user change, then the ACL does not make sense anymore. But let's say that's an open option. And we also see potential for the additional, let's say, development and extension of this mechanism, because the bdbag library supports the creation of, let's say, sort of virtual BagIt packages. So the payload of the package is just a list of pointers to the real data and not the real data. And also it supports the so-called transport handler. So implementation of certain transport protocol, management of certain transport protocol within the library. So with these two features, you can imagine that you can do export towards other system like a publishing tool. You can publish just the metadata, so through a BagIt virtual package. Even if your IRODS is not directly integrated, connected to that tool, you just export the virtual package, import as a normal file, a package on the other tool. And when the user download it through the bdbag library, can download the real data from IRODS. In this way, you basically skip one jump of the data. The data go directly from IRODS to the user without the need to be moved to a third node publishing tool. Or in the opposite flow, in the import case. So there are users with data distributed in many cloud storage space and so on. And sometimes these are not really integrated in IRODS. You cannot really move directly things in IRODS, but you can move a virtual package again. And then within IRODS, you can allow IRODS to use the bdbag library to just connect directly to remote cloud or whatever, and materialize, let's say, the packet within IRODS. So you move the data. Again, in this way, you skip one jump of the data, because the data is not downloaded locally to the user, but just to IRODS. And that's it. If you have a question.
Very good, thank you. Yeah, I like the idea that it's separate, and that, you know, I was thinking the same thing about the frictionless, you know, in case that's a thing that takes off. Expanding from the weak community. We've got one question from Mike. It says, can the tiering capability handle adding workflows like, you know, create a bdbag as part of the standard metadata driven operation? Like, can the details of the tiering be customized to whatever you want it to be?
So the resources involved, not only using data archive, tape library, but different tier. That's what you mean.
I think that's what he means. Yes.
Okay. Well, yes. As I said, we have implemented it for the tape archive, but in principle, you can use it on different resources. Yes, it's not specific for our tape archive.
Okay. Okay. And then let's see, we've got, oh, Jason's pointing out that, storage tiering is all about placement and movement of the data itself. So there might be a pre-policy that could happen to take some of the load off of the work that you're doing. And, but you said, you've separated it from keeping some of the logic out of iRods and then keeping some of the logic in the library. So there's definitely a balance there. It depends on who's holding it. And then last question, let's see, can you also export create times for data objects? Is that a thing that matters for bdbag or BagIt?
Potentially, yes, it's possible. We have not implemented it yet. We export the checksum by default. And it's possible to select different algorithm of the checksum, even different from what iRods computed, indeed.
Right.
But yeah, it's quite easy to extend it to other metadata like creation time, modification time. Yeah.
Okay. And then when you explode those back out, when you expand them, it would restore those. Is that how that works?
For the AVU, yes. Now we have already implemented the automatic restore of the views. For the system metadata, in principle, yes, you can also restore, but some system metadata you need to think about if it makes sense really to restore or not.
Right. I know that in iRods, every replica has its own timestamps because they're physical instantiations. So that might also affect the answer, Erwin, here in Slack. And then Jerome asks, are the rule sets published somewhere? And then what do they have to do to be able to use this? How does somebody else try to use this as well?
We have, let's say, shared this URL with some of our users for our services. So we have some users that have tested it as pilots. And yeah, if someone is, we have not published it in a public GitHub project. It's at the moment in our internal GitLab at Surf. But if someone is interested, write to us, contact us, and we can share. Let's say, we need to clean up probably a bit the code, but that should not be a problem.
Very good. Let's see. Got one more question from Paul. It says, from Maastricht, says, I think iRods is the limit here. I think you currently can't modify create times upon restoring. Okay. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure about that either. We don't, so iRods has the concept of a create time. Obviously Unix has a change time, which is updated differently. So there's always I always have to remember where the truth is and what we do and what they do. Very good, Claudio. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.